Hello. It's my great honor to read the last 5 chapters of A Good Kind of Trouble by Lisa Moore Ramey. What a great author, and how lucky we are that she wrote this amazing book for us to dig into this year. So, the chapters that we're going to be reading, the final 5 chapters, are 67 Stick, 68 Almost Over, 69 Hard Laughter, 70 New Path, and 71 Pages and Pages. So these final 5 chapters are the resolution of this novel, in my opinion. You could argue that 67 is really part of the climax, so it's sort of like the climax and coming down into the resolution of this amazing story. If you've noticed, I've added a graphic here of the raised fist that you see on the cover, the illustration cover that Shayla has on her backpack. I'll just bring that in a little closer so you could see if you hadn't noticed it. But I think that we've all noticed it. So here we go, 67 Stick. The stick being the baton that Shayla is now going to have to pass to the relay to grab it and to pass it forward, because she's now on the relay team because one of the girls is hurt. So here we go. 67 Stick, page 342. When they hear I'm going to run, Angie and Maya both give me hugs, but Natalie just nods at me. I follow them to the grass to stretch. As scared as I am to run, it feels good to sit with them and stretch together. When the announcer calls the 2-minute... Sorry, I'm just shutting this down so it doesn't bother us. When the announcer calls the 2-minute warning for our race, the other girls pull me into a 4-way huddle. I've watched them do it before every race. Y'all know we got this thing, right? Natalie says, looking directly at me. We sure do, Maya and Angie say. I just nod. We didn't hear you, Willows. Do we got this thing? Natalie shouts at me. Is she mad at me? Or just mad that Carmetta can't run? Yeah, I croak, but then I swallow hard and I say, yeah, we got this. We put our hands together and we say, team. I line up at my spot, and it feels odd to be just standing there, not in blocks and not facing down hurdles. I hear the gun, and then I shout, I shut everything out. Waiting for Natalie. She's coming fast, maybe too fast. When she starts to get close, I start running with my itchy hand stuck out behind me, hoping and praying we'll connect. We have to make the transfer before I'm out of the handoff zone. If I get it late, we'll be disqualified. Stick, stick, Natalie screams at me. I'm nearing the end of the zone. I feel the baton in my hand, but Natalie's not letting go, and the baton is bobbling. I feel it slip. I'm losing it. But then my hand closes around it tight, and then I'm running as fast as I can. I don't even want to think about passing it to Maya. I just run. And I see Maya standing there ready. And then she starts running with her hand out behind her, ready for me to pass the baton. Stick, I say, passing the baton cleanly into her hand. I run a few more meters and then stop, my hands on my knees, breathing hard. It seems like we are way behind. I lost us some ground. I'm scared to watch the rest of the race, but I have to. Natalie runs up behind me and squeezes me in a hug. You saved my butt, girl, she says. I shake my head. We are a team. We watch together as Maya gains on the girl ahead of me. And we both hold our breath when Maya hands off to Angie. The pass is perfect. Angie runs faster than I've ever seen her go. Carmetta is suddenly next to us, and we're all screaming, "Go, Angie, go!" And then Maya joins us too. Angie's still in second, and the Wayne girl seems like she's going to be too fast to catch. But Angie is gaining on her, and I feel like a scream got caught in my throat. Then they're neck and neck, and the finish line is right in front of them. When Angie crosses the finish line first, we scream like we're on fire. Angie keeps running until she joins us, and we all jump up and down and shout and pat each other on the back and give high fives. Of course, Carmetta doesn't jump up and down with her hurt ankle and all, but her spirit is jumping. I can tell. And then I get this idea, and I stick my fist high up in the sky. And then Angie smiles and puts hers up too. And then Natalie and Maya and Carmetta. And for just a few seconds, we are Olympic athletes saying we matter just as much as anybody. Coach West comes over and gives us a group hug. She always tells us she doesn't care if we win or lose, but I've noticed she's much happier when we win. She pats me on the shoulder. "Thanks for helping us out," she says. It seems weird that she's thanking me because it really feels like I should be thanking her for something. Winning felt awesome, but being a part of the team was even better. What a great climax, huh? So she's on the track team. Unfortunately, Natalie hurts her ankle. She gets to come in. It's one of those moments when you're in school that you'll remember forever. They win the relay race. I can't tell you how exciting that is. I've been on relay races myself on swim team, and it is like the best feeling ever to win a relay race. So at the end of the race, our friend Shayla gets this idea in her head because she knows from her sister's poster in her room with the Olympic athletes with their hands in the air. And she does that, and all the girls do it. And so it's like a really huge moment for them. So the quote that I grabbed out of this chapter is, "And then I get this idea, and I stick my fist high up in the air, in the sky. Angie smiles and puts hers up too. Then Natalie and Maya and Carmetta." So I thought that was worth putting the cool image of the fist up in the air for their solidarity. I think it's just so great. So here we go. We're moving on to chapter 68, almost over. It's on page 346. It's hard to believe that my first year of junior high is almost over. And maybe because we still have Easter decorations up at home. I'll tell you, Mama, being a student has not improved our home life. I have to do my laundry now, and once a week, Hannah and I have to cook dinner. Sometimes I want to remind Mama that I'm only 12, but I know she would just think that's too funny. Isabella came over after school today so we could pretend to study vocabulary words. What we are really doing is eating chips and gossiping in my room. I grab some chips, and with my mouth full, I say, "I've been thinking about." We have loads of time before we start dealing with the whole boy thing, right? I can't believe I risked a friendship over a boy. Isabella looks around the room like there might be a hidden camera or something. Where did Shayla go?" she asks. I grin and I wiggle my eyebrows. "Seriously," I say, "I acted stupid over Jace. I'm not going to do that again. And I'm going to try to not be so jealous about how pretty you are." Isabella drops her head, letting her hair fall into her face. "You're so weird." But then she looks at me, and I can see trouble twinkling in her eyes. Next time you go crazy over a boy, you know who it should be? Who? Alex. What? I ask, and I start laughing at how ridiculous that is. And then Isabella is laughing too, and we just both can't stop. And I almost feel like I'm going to pee my pants. There's a knock on the door, and I choke out, "Come in," between giggles and snorts. The door opens slowly, and Julia is standing there looking a little scared. So here we go, almost over. It looks like Isabella and Shayla are hanging out in her room after school, pretending to study for some vocabulary words. And Shayla comes to another growth moment. And she admits this to Isabella. And she says, "I acted stupid over Jace." Yeah, we know she did. We've all been talking about that. I'm not going to do that again. And I'm going to try to not be so jealous about how pretty you are. Notice I wrote this quote in green. They call jealousy the green monster. And Shayla really has been very jealous all year long of her best friend, Isabella. So that was really fantastic. And then Isabella's just like embarrassed by that. And then they just start joking around about Alex. So it's really pretty fun. And then, oh my goodness, here comes Julia. Who expected her? She's just been off with her other friends, and now she's there at the house. So the next chapter we're going to read is called Hard Laughter, page 69, chapter 69, page 348. Okay, Hard Laughter. Isabella and I immediately stop laughing like we've been caught doing something bad. "Come in. Geez, you don't have to knock," I say. Julia nods. "Yeah, I know." She walks in and stands in the middle of my room, as if it's the first time she's been in here. "So, what's so funny?" "Oh, nothing," I say, which is sort of worse than explaining. Julia plops down on my beanbag chair and starts playing with the rough seam that always catches you whenever you move. "I saw on Instagram that you were both here." I felt guilty right away. Mama is always telling me it's not nice to post a picture when it might hurt someone's feelings. But honestly, it didn't even occur to me that Julia would care that Isabella and I are hanging out without her. I would have texted you to come over, but... Yeah, I know. She rubs at the seam and keeps her head down. And then she looks right at me. "I miss you guys." I'm totally shocked. I've missed Julia so much this year, but it never seemed like she was missing us. "I miss you too." "We both do," Isabella says. Julia gets up and starts messing with stuff on my desk. I see her look over at my eyeball journal. I hope she won't start paging through it. Some of the things in there about her aren't all that nice. She stares up at the poster of Tommy Smith and John Carlos with their fists raised at the Olympics. The same one Hannah has in her room. She glances at my bulletin board with all our pictures, then she turns around and faces us. When I said it wasn't a big deal about me not being around, I knew it wasn't true. But I just didn't want to admit it. And I didn't know what to do. It was fun being with a group that understands that Japanese and Chinese and Korean and everything aren't the same thing. And that being Asian doesn't mean being a certain way, like being sweet or quiet. "I get that," Isabella says. People think a Latina is what they see in movies, illegals and gang members, and they act like Puerto Rico isn't part of this country, like with the hurricane. We still haven't gotten the help to rebuild like we should have. And we're as American as anybody else." Julia sighs. "Yeah. It feels like things are finally getting back to normal, and I don't want to ruin it, but I need to say something. We all know what it's like to be treated wrong. just because of the way we look. But I paused, trying to get the words to come out right. But when people make assumptions about you, no one dies. Both my friends look at me with wide eyes, and it takes a second, but then I can tell they both get it. Maybe that was the thing I needed most, for my friends to understand. We're quiet for a minute, and Julia seems really sad now. "Hey," I say to her, my voice serious. She looks at me, and I can tell she's nervous. "Just so you know, we would have never been friends if you were quiet." That makes Julia smile. "I know, bro," she says. Then she rubs her bottom lip hard and looks at the carpet. "Sorry." "It's okay, bro," I say, grinning at her. Julia comes over and sits on the bed next to me and Isabella. She puts her hair back tight, and she's trying to pull it out or something, and then she lets it fall around her shoulders in a thick black curtain. There's no trace of highlights. She touches my armband. "You were really brave." I shake off her words. Maybe if I really had been brave, I would have told Julia a long time ago how her ditching us made me feel. "I really missed you," I said, "a lot." And I look at our picture on my bulletin board. It's like 3 different girls. "But what you said is true," I say. "Things change. People change." Julia nods and gives my shoulder a nudge with hers. "The command thing with Tyler was mean," she says, low, and starts blinking fast. "Yeah, it was," I can't help saying. "For a minute it was," Julia lets her hair fall in her face, "sort of fun to be mean." She peeks at me through her hair. "I know that sounds awful," she says really fast. "I don't know how mean could be fun," Isabella says. "Seriously," I say. "I guess what I meant was," Julia pauses to figure it out, "Stacy has a ton of friends. So it was nice feeling popular too." "You don't have to be mean to be popular," Isabella says, incredulously. "No, you don't," I say. "Sort of," Julia says, but then she adds, "It didn't feel like being mean as much as it felt like being funny. And I swear, I really didn't think you and Tyler would end up kissing." "Well, he sure shouldn't have gone along with it, but I wish you would have told Stacy not to play a joke on me." Julia nods. "I should have. I knew it was messed up. It can be hard to stand up to Stacy sometimes, but I shouldn't have gone along with something that I knew wasn't right." "Unless you get commanded," Isabella says, and she sounds so serious, it takes me a second to realize that she's joking. Julia smiles. "Yeah, except then." She holds up her hands, showing her uncrossed fingers like she's daring us. I want to shout, "Command!" and tell Julia she has to stay best friends with us. But any friendship manual would tell you that that's not the way to keep a friend. "So, what now?" Isabella says. "I guess I just want to know if," Julia licks her lips, "if I'm still a part of the United Nations." "Of course you are," Isabella says. "Always," I say. Julia pinches the bridge of her nose like our 5th grade teacher calling for a cleansing breath. I figure it can't hurt. I take one too. I hold out my phone so we can all fit into the selfie. With our heads pressed close together and our smiles as wide as the sky, we look completely united. Sometimes you don't even realize you're holding your breath until you finally let it out. So in this chapter, we get Julia interrupting and coming into the room, and then the girls have a really important conversation about race. And they all kind of recognize that each of them, in a certain way, are dealing with racism dealing with people's biases and dealing with people's stereotypes that they have about race. And Shayla just has to say, she cuts in to the conversation and she says, but when people make assumptions about you, no one dies. And I believe that the author wrote this before, obviously, all of these attacks on our Asian friends due to coronavirus. We've been talking about this week and last week, and I want to just say that Shayla's statement is not true. That's really how she feels. And there really is an elevated risk for black people when they're confronted by police officers in getting shot when they're unarmed. We've seen that. We've seen all the examples. Breonna Taylor, everyone that we've heard about, George Floyd, what happened to him. But let's be honest, we've learned this week and last week that there's been quite a bit of violence against Asian people, and it has to stop as well. So that's why I wanted to highlight this one, and I put it in red right here. So now we're moving on to chapter 70. It's called New Path. The next day at lunch, I get a great idea. It's an itchy palm idea, but I can't always worry about my hands. After all, I went through with the armbands. I don't want anything to just stay the same at school. It's time for a change. I stand up. Come on, let's go, I say to my friends. Although I understand everything Julia said yesterday, I'm still glad to have the United Nations together again, united. What? Isabella says. Where? Don't worry about that, I say. Just come on. Julia zips up her lunch bag. Fine. She stands up. I stop at the table where Julia's other friends are. Get up, everyone, I tell them. Come on. Stacy giggles and gets right up. In that moment, I can see what Julia meant about her. That's one girl who is up for anything. Lynn sort of shakes her head, but gets up too. And then everyone else gets up and follows me to the basketball courts. I figure there's no reason we all can't be united. When we get there, everyone is cool, like, hey, how's it going? We're all wearing armbands, and I feel really proud about that. Bernard glances at me, which is really him smiling, and I smile back. On the other side of Bernard is Yolanda, and on the other side of her is Tyler. And they're holding hands. And she's cheesing that upside down Y like she just won a huge prize. I don't know how I missed how big she was crushing on him. The sun feels great on my face. Seeing the United Nations get a whole lot bigger feels awesome. I lean over and I give Bernard a nudge. Hey, Bernard, I say, do you think we could ask Mr. Levy for us to be lab partners again? He gives me a high five so hard, I have to rub my hand on my pants. Ow! I say, laughing. Bernard's laughter is so loud it's like a lion's roar. So, what a cool thing Shayla just did. She said, hey, how come we all have to be sitting in different places for lunch? Why can't we all just go over to the basketball court and have our lunch? And so she says, and everyone else gets up and follows me to the basketball courts. So this is Shayla kind of bringing it all together. She and her friends are United Nations, but what she'd really like to see is some more class unity. So for the whole class and for the whole school to feel like everyone takes care of everyone else and they're not just sitting in little cliques based on their race. I love that. The next and final chapter is called Pages and Pages. Oh my goodness, we're at the very end. I can't hardly believe it. Look at this book that we've read together. So proud of us. So here we go, Pages and Pages. Shayla is in her bedroom. This is how the book ends. She's in her room. That night, I pull out my eyeball journal. It's gotten a little ratty over the course of the year. I flip through the journal, looking over the things I wrote. Some of them are pages and pages long, but most of them are short and to the point. Green eyes are hot. Cafeteria lunches are nasty. As I'm reading, Hannah comes strolling into my room without knocking. You're almost an 8th grader. You must think you're all that. She joins me on my bed, close enough that our arms touch. The armband on my left arm touching the one on her right. Is 8th grade going to be easier? I ask. Oh, yeah, it's all chill after 7th, she jokes. But then she gets serious. Hey, good job with the armbands. I look at her. But it's not really going to change anything. Change is hard. She shrugs. But that doesn't mean we stop, right? Right. Besides, she says, it seems like it changed you. And it's pretty important. She gets up, and as she leaves, she holds her fist up. So I hold mine up too. And then she walks out, leaving the door open, of course. I get up, shut the door, and I go back to reading my journal. I went through a lot this year. I wonder what pages I should paper clip together so that Miss Jacobs doesn't read them. There's a lot of embarrassing journal entries. I decide not to clip any. Maybe Emerson was right when he talked about learning through suffering. I mean, this year wasn't easy, but I sure learned a lot. I look at the piece of paper I tacked up with the quote Daddy and Hannah told me, the James Baldwin one about not being able to change anything unless you face it. I may not have changed much, but I sure learned something important. I make one final entry. Some things are worth the trouble. For real. So that's the end of our story. We're done reading A Good Kind of Trouble, but we're not done talking about it and thinking about all the big ideas and themes that happened. In this last chapter, Shayla's reading through her eyeball journal for her English class, and her sister comes into the room and gives her a compliment about getting the Black Lives Matter black armband movement going at school. And Shayla's questioning, it's not going to change anything. I'm not even sure if it's going to do anything. And what her sister says to her is, well, you know what? It changed you. Besides, she says, seems like it changed you. And that's what's most important. This book is what's called a coming-of-age novel. And it also has many other themes throughout this book. But the major theme in this book is how Shayla comes to terms with her identity as a black girl. And then how that helps her develop and change as she's going through being in junior high school, her friendships, being brave, having courage, standing up for what's right, what it feels like when you're jealous. These are all the different themes that were in this book that we'll continue to talk about throughout the year, and even as we move into our poetry unit, which also addresses these different themes too. All right. Thank you very much for your attention and listening to this story. And thank you very much to Lisa Moore Ramey for creating such a wonderful novel for us to enjoy.